Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Kramer. As you can see, if you're watching this, of course you can't if you're listening, I have two lovely guests with me today. We have Kate Alpert and Dorothy Rosen from Women Belong, and we're going to have a beautiful, full discussion about what these ladies are doing and how it is empowering women entrepreneurs. So, gentlemen, please bear with us. I promise this will be a great interview for you as well. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you so much, Alicia. We really appreciate being here.
Let's start by talking a little bit about what you are doing, so our listeners get a sense of what is this all about? Who are these two lovely ladies that we're listening to for the next 20 to 30 minutes? So I'm going to let you fill us in.
Kate, you want to go first?
Sure. Well, we're leading a movement of bringing women together for networking that bridges the professional and personal, supporting each other through ongoing networking groups that meet across the country, into Canada right now, starting to go global. And it's really aimed at being human, and what that means for business networking, right? How can we show up not just as our jobs and our facade of like who we want to present, but who really are we, right, at our core, and having a space to be vulnerable about what's going on in the world, what's going on in business, and being able to hear and learn from others in the same way.
Yeah, and I also think that Kate and I both come from marketing backgrounds. I had big corporate background. She had a medium-sized digital agency background. And we came to this from a place of going through our own personal stuff, our life experiences. And what we began to identify is that we were authentic and vulnerable in what we were going through, and we were making space for others. And I also want to say, while this organization is here to support women, we love men, right? Married to
So this
them.
is not a feminist movement.
I mean, it is that too.
I think we are, but we love men. We've given birth to men. We both have sons. And we've worked with men. It's not that but we see that there are some specific challenges that women have in business. And I think that that's the biggest thing that we're all overcoming on a daily basis, whether it's the imposter syndrome, whether it's speaking from our own authority, whether it's not minimizing the work we do. There are so many nuances of being a woman in business and building a business that I think are really important, and that are not completely understood by men, even though they love us and they want us to be successful. Yeah.
When I'm working with my clients, and I have clients that are both men, and I work with women clients, there certainly are some distinct differences in terms of the types of challenges that women frequently will encounter. And sometimes there is some crossover. What I love about what you just shared there, that you love men. And the reason that I made the joke about not a feminist movement is because if you remember back, maybe, I don't know, 10, 20 years ago, it was almost like, women were grabbing the pitchforks and the torch, and it was really hating on masculine energy. And there was a big big disconnect. And I liken that to, you go from one end, one extreme end of the spectrum, all the way to the other extreme end of the spectrum. And that's not good. And we know that balance, whatever that means, right? And sometimes balance might mean a little bit more assertiveness versus, gentleness in certain circumstances. But balance is just that. It's not being on the extremes. And what you ladies are doing is you're helping to create an environment that is more supportive to the woman entrepreneur, to help them really have that stable foundation that they need to grow. And we're seeing a lot of changes. A lot more women are in power positions. A lot more women are building and growing businesses. I literally just got done recording another interview for the podcast with a woman who's making waves with her company, multi-million dollar companies that she's creating left and right. But we need that type of support, and going to sort of like the good old boys club doesn't really work for a lot of women entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I think that growing up in corporate America, one of the things that I had to do, was adopt a lot of masculine values, right? In order, because who do we pattern ourselves after in terms of being successful? Who do we see moving ahead, and how do we try and figure out all of that? And I think that there's an opportunity for us to change the conversation, and we have to own it, right? When people, I mean, I'm just going to be straight out here, because it's going to, and perhaps it's going to sound feminist. If someone calls me a bitch, my response is thank you. Thank you for seeing me as a woman who defends those things that I care about. And don't you wish I was in your corner, right? Because it's really understanding how language has also shifted the way we show up, the way we understand ourselves, the hurts that we as women experience in business that we don't say out loud, like, ouch, that hurts, or that's not fair. The way we've silenced ourselves in meetings. There's so much I think, for women to overcome in the marketplace. And I do applaud the fact that there are so many changes that are happening, but there's so many changes that still need to happen. And most of them have to happen within ourselves.
So true.
It's not about outside, right? It's about in ourselves.
And I think there's a whole conversation in the consciousness now too around the fluidity of gender. Right. That that there is not just one this is how women are and this is how men are, but that there's a binary this and that. And while we're an organization aimed at those that identify as women, we support our gender fluid and gender non-binary as well. I mean, our conversations are aimed around the experience and the multifaceted experience of what it means to be woman identified.
Yeah.
I want to talk just a moment about this phenomenon that I've seen recently with a group of my clients who have cultural reasons for being sort of boxed in to that old paradigm of what it means to be a woman. And they are collectively slowly beginning to break out of that. But there's a lot of internal resistance to that, because culturally they're getting some pushback. And sometimes it is not as bad of pushback, really, externally, as much as it is internally. They're perceiving things that are not real. So, I mean, and this is where I come in as a mindset coach, and I help people to shift those paradigms and overcome those self-imposed limitations.
Mhm.
But if we just look at this in a really practical, pragmatic way, we can see that there are still some external forces that are adversely affecting women in business. Sometimes it is their spouse. Sometimes it's their family. Sometimes it's their religious beliefs. Sometimes it's their cultural beliefs. And even though there is so much transformation happening in the world, and we are evolving in our consciousness more collectively, there still is work to do, as you mentioned. So I'd love to hear from you ladies. What is your take on this, and how do you find yourself supporting one another within your organization so that you can help break free from those limitations?
Wow, that's a big one. And I would say, without a doubt, it's the mindfulness, right? That we are never trained as humans how to be human, to have those conversations, to start to parse out what is real, what is not real, because it's all our perception, right? And I truly am a believer in a lot of self development and growth work that really helps me question, huh, is that how I really perceive things? Or is that how things really are? Or is it how I'm perceiving things? And it takes a lot for us to break through those historical dimensions, right? It's a lot. Um, I'm not sure that I'm going to get to the question, because I think that it's opening up and it's listening. It says, excuse me, being open to the conversations.
Curiosity, right?
Curiosity is huge,
Yeah.
right?
And
And
curiosity about your own experience, who you are, and challenging wherever those limitations come, where you say, I can't do that because, well, why? What's that story about?
yeah, I think that my biggest block for in mindfulness and in terms of this area, in terms of overcoming something, was really the thought that there was one way of doing things, and it was Dorothy Rosen's way, right? And I know Kate Alpert has a way of doing things, and that's been the balance of our partnership, is having conversations about the way we do things. But I really, in my mind, I thought there was one way of doing things. It was Dorothy Rosen's way or the wrong way. And it took a lot of development work for me to release myself of that superior attitude, so that I could hear what other people are saying, to really hear and to really understand and to really be available. Because without that, I'm making assumptions all day long about A, what you're doing, how you could do it better, without understanding where you want to go, who you are, what's important to you, all of that. So I think Kate's right. I mean, it's all about curiosity for us.
To piggyback off of that, I think that way showers help as well. So
Mm-hmm.
when we witness someone else achieving what in our heart we want to achieve, but in our mind haven't adopted as a belief as possible for us yet, when we see someone else break through, that creates a shift in the
Mm-hmm.
mind. And the more we surround ourselves with powerful women who are out there breaking those barriers, achieving phenomenal levels of success. And when I'm talking about success, I'm not just talking about financial, I'm not just talking about monetary. Um, there was a study I read recently that they did a study a while back, and then they modernized it a little bit and improved upon it, and they found the correlation between what someone earned, their income, and their happiness. And they found there's sort of this threshold But anyone who earned less than that, the less money they earned, the less happier they perceived themselves to be. The more money they earned, the happier they perceived themselves to be. But here was the caveat: the people who believed that money and success were mutually they were connected, were actually less happy.
Mm.
So here's what that tells us: you can have a lot of money and not be successful, because success is about your whole life, your state of being. It's about feeling successful in all of the areas of life that are important to you. That may include finances, that may include business success, which usually is, tied to financial prosperity. But if you're miserable, if you're depressed, if the rest of your life is falling apart, you're not truly successful.
True. Well, there's also that study that was done with lottery winners and paraplegics. That the happiness factor was exponentially more for the lottery winners the first year or at the beginning. And after a year or two, the happiness levels of a paraplegic and lottery winners was equal. I mean, that's it, same concept, right? And that we drive our own happiness. We are responsible for our own success and how we interpret success and how we come to success. Yeah, I think you're right on that. Yeah.
It's a powerful, important conversation to have. And if we want to sort of come back around full circle, and we're talking about women's success in business. And now, for women, sometimes we do have slightly different values than our male counterparts. And this is just being very, very general, because each of us individually has our own values. And certainly some men are going to naturally be more nurturing and more family oriented, and more of the one to maybe have quality time with the children, do more of the child raising activities and those types of things. So what I'm referring to here, though, is for those of us that are moms, is a really great example. Right? There is something to be said when you're a mom. you made that comment about, if you're going to call me a bitch, I'm going to take that as a compliment. You want me in your corner. And I think that as moms, we can be pretty badass. Like, you don't mess with my babies, because I'm not going to be so nice then. But it is about these values and about finding that balance. And I'm sure you've experienced this both in your own ways, certainly in corporate, that sometimes the mom role is sort of frowned upon, as though it's sort of a weakness, right? And when we are coming together as women entrepreneurs, we're cheering each other on, we're applauding, we're like, you got this, you took the kids to the soccer game, you cleaned up a snotty nose, and you're here on time for this network meeting. Dang, girl. Whereas, in certain other situations, that's not necessarily valued, because it's not as fully and completely understood.
Yeah, I've never understood the mom put out to pasture kind of story that corporate America tells, because there is no one more efficient than a mom with a caregiver that is watching her child. That mom knows exactly the amount of minutes that she has to complete the tasks that she has before she goes back to the much more difficult job of caregiving. So I don't know. I've never understood that. I think And I think that all of us with children right now have just gone through perhaps the most difficult, and are still going through the most difficult time through this pandemic, because what occurred last year with e-learning and just the amount of fear, disruption, and managing the unexpected, right, of being parents at this, at this time. I think parents have been tested in a way that they never have before.
Mm.
I want to make sure we have time to talk about Women Belong. So, can you ladies share a little bit more about what your organization does? And you mentioned it is becoming international. You are currently in the United States, you are currently in Canada. So, this is not like a local networking group where you have to get in the car and drive to wherever. You're connecting people from all over. So let's talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, Alicia, what's cool about it is it's local and global. So it's groups that are hyper focused on local networking around a specific area. And those groups meet twice a month, not in person currently, but formerly they met in person, and perhaps someday soon, some groups will be back in person. And then there are events and opportunities for those hubs to then connect and engage with each other. And so we're building networks that are then interconnected and woven into broader networks. Yeah, go ahead, Dor.
I was also going to say, I mean, I think that we have the way I see us differentiating ourselves is in three primary ways. One is we are incredibly relationship oriented. That is at the basis of everything that we do, that we are not a transactionally based organization. We are not here to hand out business cards. Nobody comes to our meetings to buy anything. Most people, yes, have a desire to sell something, but that's the truth is that unless we have a relationship, no one's buying, right? It just doesn't make sense. So having a longer vision of what networking looks like, the connections, creating belonging, right? None of us feel like, well, I shouldn't say none of us. I sure as heck did not feel as though I belonged in different places. I'm a first generation American. And so that I came in with this predisposition that I don't belong anywhere. And I think that it's not unique to first generation Americans. It's pretty endemic to populations, especially of women who are working. So being relationship based is first and foremost. The second is that we have a focus on thought leadership. We care about sharing the thought leadership of our members, edifying them, holding them up, sharing their original work, and making sure that that is exposed and delivered to larger and larger audiences. We feel it's really important as part of the networking. It's not only about sales, but it's also about marketing. And then the third area is leadership. All of the women in Women Belong are leaders. They're leaders in their lives, their families, their businesses. Some of them have not had opportunities to lead organizations, though. And we really believe that that's part of the skill set that we want to share. And it has been a great honor and pleasure during COVID, and sometimes difficult, but we're now curating 50 meetings a month minimally online. And so we are exposed to a lot of different leadership styles, which we want to bring people together. A lot of organizations want you to just network within that small group. I want our members to know as many people as they possibly can, because we live in abundance. We don't see other women's organizations, networking organizations, as competitive. I want our women to be really connected. Right? At one point, we had a poet, professional wrestler, and a pole dancer in the organization. I love the alliteration, right? But I love like thinking about what that Venn diagram looked like. These, what's the overlap look like? And the overlap may be none, and so it explodes that network. People become a hub and spoke. So I think that's what differentiates us and where we've come from. And you know what? Every single one of our meetings is free and open to guests, the circle meetings. And we do that with I think, a very generous policy. And we do that because we want people to come and visit. We want people to meet each other. We want to build excitement within the circles.
Right.
And
Women to uplift each other wherever they are.
yeah, and I don't know where that old story came that women aren't here to don't support each other. I find that to be a giant load of BS. These women are supporting each other, they're loving on each other. And the reason why we've grown, Kate and I could not possibly have as many conversations as these women are having. We've grown because of our members, because they see value. They want to join us. They want this to be successful. All of a sudden we found ourselves in Asheville, North Carolina, because somebody moved to Asheville, North Carolina and said, there's nothing like this here. We need to have this here. And that's how a lot of the circles that aren't in Chicago grew.
I love that.
I hope you understand, Alicia, we're kind of passionate about what we do.
Every one of my guests is passionate about what they do, or they would not be on the show.
Yeah, right? Makes the job a lot more fun.
So now, since we're on this subject, how can our listeners participate as a guest in one of these meetings?
Well, Kate would show her screen right now.
Yes, Dorothy. So we'll just share the URL, womenbelong.com/circles gets you a list of all the circles that you can visit, and click through to see the calendar and then register for a meeting that works for your schedule.
Right. Wonderful. All right. So now, as we are rounding out this episode, I would love for you ladies, and Dorothy, I know you did share about one of your mindset challenges that you have had to work through and overcome. I'm going to open up for either of you or both of you to share here a mindset challenge that you personally had to overcome in order to get to where you are today.
Well, I've got 3 of them. So I'll start off. One is control. One of the things that I learned when my husband got sick 7 years ago is that I have no control. And then that was underlined, exclamation pointed throughout the pandemic, right? I do not have control. I am here to be opportunistic. I'm here to be flexible and agile and have resilience. So that's one. The second is knowing everything, as I said, being a superior bitch and thinking that I knew everything that there was to know and that I had all the answers. And the third is embracing my feminine values, embracing the fact that as soon as I became vulnerable and open and authentic, this business became one of ease. Right? But when I hold myself tight and I don't share with you what's going on, I will not be successful, because I need you to help me be successful. And I want to help you be successful.
I just have to say, I love that you had that awareness about the authenticity piece. I cannot tell you how many times I have heard from women in business who said, I struggled and I struggled and I struggled until I stopped trying to be someone I wasn't, something I wasn't, and I just started being me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know about you. I had a female HR person tell me, "Honey, don't let them see you sweat, and don't talk about family, talk about teams, sports teams." And I'm like, "That's not who I am," right? And the information that we get and we start following and we start thinking, well, this is the way I'm going to be successful, or that's the way I'm going to be successful, until we are listening to that internal compass. And it takes a long time to hear that compass or that little thing inside that says, this is who I am and this is how I'm going to show up.
Mm-hmm. So true.
Yeah. Kate?
It's me. Well, first I'll say I don't think I've overcome anything. So I'm very much still a work in progress. But I would say perfectionism, always challenging where perfectionism hides. And it hides in all kinds of crazy places. Um, and the other one for me that is a constant conversation is the sense of urgency.
Mm.
That there is no reason for it, and we can open up so much richness by backing off that gas pedal and listening and allowing space for answers to come. Um, I, I feel those are the places that get the attention.
We're all a work in progress. You never get it done. I say it all the time. Even my most successful clients, who by other people's standards look like they've got it all together, they've achieved phenomenal things in their life and in their business, they're still doing their inner work. It doesn't stop. It's an ongoing journey. Every time we up level, there's going to be an opportunity for more growth, more expansion, more of those old self-imposed limitations that we have to let go of. And when we can embrace that there is no perfection, because you're never going to get it all done. I always say, you've got a lifetime worth of bad conditioning in your subconscious mind. There is no thing that has the ability, there's no magic wand that someone can wave and it's automatically, instantaneously going to resolve every wacky back ass thing you've ever heard, bought into, believed about yourself. It's just simply not going to happen. So buckle up. You're just going to have to keep doing the work.
Well, and
Right?
what fun would it be if it was done, right?
Well, and being able to admit mistakes has been, I think, the thing that has endeared us at times to the people, the folks out there, right? And as you were talking, Alicia, one of the things that came to mind for me as well was thinking about Thich Nhat Hanh's book of his Pocket Companion. I read it almost every day, and it's a little thing, but every time I read a chapter and reread it a month later, a week later, a year later, there are new insights because I'm constantly changing. I am not the same woman who was on this podcast 3 minutes ago.
It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah.
This has been a wonderful conversation, ladies. I want to thank you both so much for being with us today.
We appreciate you. Thank you.
And I have to thank our listeners. We're doing this for you. If you have not already subscribed, please make sure you do so. And until next time, we will see you in the next episode.